One more. I tried, and I tried. You all betrayed me. You can hang like the rest of you.
Eddie Gluskin is one of the most deranged and unhinged individuals that you'll meet in the Whistleblower DLC for the game Outlast. Encountered by Waylon Park as he attempts to flee the Mount Massive Asylum, Gluskin is a patient who's even infamous among other patients. His obsession with women and marriage taken to horrifying new heights after his session with the Morphogenic Engine. Gluskin hasn't let the fact that he's stuck in an all-male mental asylum stop him from looking for the perfect person to marry and make a family with.
Oh God! Oh God, it's okay! Tell me you're okay! You're suffering without me. Why would you do something like this to yourself? Rather die than be with me. Then die.
The story of Eddie Gluskin as we know it begins with his childhood. From a very young age, Eddie was sexually abused by both his father and his uncle. They would violently abuse Eddie and even take pictures as they took part in their devilish activities. Fortunately, these men were subsequently found out and dealt with, but the burden of this act on Eddie's psyche was devastating and irreversible. So in order to cope with this horrifying past, Eddie created his own backstory based off the popular sitcom show Leave It to Beaver. Of course, it was not difficult to see through Eddie's obvious lie. And though he would try to stick to his established fantasies, the case against Eddie's father and uncle was a matter of public record, as were the medical conditions that the poor boy suffered as a result. The weight of this mental trauma pressed on Eddie's mind into his adulthood, where it would manifest itself in an irrational hatred of women. For one reason or another, Eddie would kill these women and mutilate their bodies. These actions eventually winding up in his institutionalization at the Mount Massive Asylum.
I want a family, a legacy, to be the father I never had. I'll never let anything happen to our children. Not like...
While at Mount Massive, like most patients, Eddie was subjected to testing with the Morphogenic Engine to see if he was capable of becoming the Wall Rider. Eddie would tell the doctors that he was in constant control of his dream state, claiming to be in advanced stages with the Morphogenic Engine program, claiming that by simply closing his eyes, he was able to hear the voice of the Wall Rider. However, as the doctors could clearly see, these claims were simply untrue. This made Eddie an extremely difficult patient to interview and get clear answers out of. Not only would he lie about his advancement in the Morphogenic Engine program, but he refused to acknowledge that he didn't grow up in Leave It to Beaver, to the point where he would get violent when confronted with photographic proof of the things his father and uncle had done to him. Eddie also refused to acknowledge his past crimes with women, and when confronted with images of his brutalities, he would simply act as if the subjects being photographed weren't dead and hadn't been mutilated. These lies made Eddie an extremely difficult person to gauge. Perhaps Eddie was truly so fractured from reality that he believed his words to be true. Or perhaps Eddie knew what he was telling were lies, but hoped that his charming smile would fool the researchers, or that he would be able to curry some favor with them. And so the story of Eddie went, until chaos struck the asylum. With the birth of the Wall Rider and the leak from Waylon Park, Mount Massive's security crumbled, releasing nearly every patient in the institution, and Eddie was no exception. With his new freedom, Eddie decided that this enormous asylum filled with deranged men was the perfect place to find the love of his life, a bride that could finally give him the family that he longed for.
It won't take long. A few snips of the flesh here and here. Cut away everything vulgar. A soft place to welcome my seed. To grow our family.
Fortunately for Eddie, there are so many eligible brides for him at the asylum, and all he needs to do is prepare them for their new role. This search for his bride-to-be eventually leads Eddie to a man named Waylon Park, the man responsible for the leak to the press, who is attempting to escape the asylum. Eddie falls for Waylon immediately and pursues his future wife with eager anticipation. However, Waylon is not so sure he's ready for this new relationship, and even doubts that Eddie is actually searching for the wife that he claims to be. After seeing dozens, if not hundreds, of bodies lining the ceiling of the gymnasium, Waylon speculates that what Eddie is actually doing is just creating women so that he will get more satisfaction out of killing them. This revelation adds a whole new level to the twisted tale of Eddie Gluskin. Born into a hellish existence, Eddie's childhood turned him into the man that he would become. A deranged lunatic who can't even see the truths that stare him directly in the face. His only happiness coming from the pain of others and the lies that he tells himself so that he doesn't have to face what he's actually doing. In an asylum filled with truly and utterly psychotic individuals, Eddie Gluskin stands as perhaps Mount Massive's most broken man.